Let's talk about skin. Skin is our outer shell. It's our outer appearance. It is the largest organ that we have. It's called the integument. It is the largest organ that we have. It is mainly protective, but it also needs to be attractive. As we age, some terrible, nasty stuff happens to our skin, most of it because of nutritional deficiencies. Some of it because of hormonal changes, some of it due to trauma, some of it due to gravity. Most of it we can fight. We've all seen folks, especially seniors, skinny seniors, fat seniors, doesn't matter. Looks like their skin's hanging off of their bodies. Take a look at their faces. Their jowls look like they belong on a hound dog. Take a look at their arms. They have those big, flabby triceps that kind of flap in the breeze when they wave high and when they drive. Take a look at their abdomens. It looks like all the skin from their pectorals down just kind of sagged down towards the waist and just kind of hanging, overlapping, flapping on the hips. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to get that way. If you're already that way, please take no offense, but there ain't no fixing it. You want to fix it, plastic surgery is the only answer. But if you want to keep from getting that, then listen up. Let's first have a lesson in histology. Histology is the study of tissues. The skin is considered to be epithelial tissue. The internal organs, the eyes, the muscles are all classified under Ham as epithelial tissue. Now, I mentioned Ham. Ham is the textbook in histology. Ham is to histology as Gray's is to anatomy, as Guyton's is to physiology. Ham is the reference work. So, the skin is epithelial tissue. Now, what holds it onto our skull, what holds it onto our muscles, what keeps it tight and beautiful in our younger years is something called fascia. And fascia is an entirely different type of tissue called soft connective tissue. Now, we call it soft connective tissue to differentiate it from hard connective tissue, which is bone. And as you might expect, each type of tissue needs a particular type of nutrient. Not all tissues are built out of the same stuff. And again, we look at Ham's for what belongs where. What is the building block of where? And we see that for epithelial tissue, the main building block is zinc. That's the main mineral building block is zinc. For fascia, for soft connective tissue, the primary building block is sulfur. Sulfur. Now, we have the bricks for each of those. We need the mortar to hold it all together. The mortar, the glue that holds the fascia together, the glue that holds the epithelium together, are made of bioflavonoids, members of the vitamin C family, sometimes known as vitamin P, but more technically known as bioflavonoids, the strongest of which is rutin. So when we're dealing with skin, we have to deal with the outside, with the epithelial tissue, and what lies underneath the fascia as well, because if you only deal with one and not the other, things are going to go awry. You're not going to get the complete picture. You may have beautiful glowing skin, and it can still hang down to your navel. What we need to do is we need to feed the epithelial tissue. We need to feed the fascia. Now, I have to say that it is all the rage these days in health food stores to sell you collagen. Collagen is animal fascia, animal connective tissue. If you eat enough steaks, if you eat enough red meat, if you eat enough animal tissue, you'll get the collagen. The only people who really need to supplement collagen are all those poor vegetarians who look 20 years older than they actually are, and all of them. And once they've been vegetarians for at least 5-10 years, look about 10 to 20 years older than their chronological ages. And part of that is because they're not eating enough animal fat to maintain hormones. Even the Hindus know that they need to eat the animal fat, so they add the eggs, they add the meat. But here in the States and in the West, vegetarians are usually very, very strict. They don't eat the eggs, they don't drink the milk, so they don't get the fat, they don't make the hormones. But the collagen is very popular as an item sold in health food stores to try to help maintain the look of the skin, to try to help maintain the fascia. Well, you know, if you're eating enough meat, you're eating enough of this connective tissue. You don't need to go off and get bottles of collagen to drink or to swallow down. You can make a ton of your own collagen by putting in the right nutrients. Now, I have to say that aside from holding your skin up, aside from keeping your skin from sagging, the nutrients that we take in for soft connective tissue also benefit the blood vessels. Blood vessels are classified as soft connective tissue because they're made out of the exact same stuff that fascia is made out of. Now, what happens when you have spider veins? What happens when you have varicose veins? What happens when you bruise easily? You have very delicate and weak-walled blood vessels. That means that you don't have enough of the sulfur and you don't have enough of the bioflavonoids to build your pipes up to the point where they can withstand the pressure of the blood flowing through them and of your activities of daily living, how you walk, how you stand, how you exercise, how you carried your baby. They're not strong enough to deal with the pressures that the blood system is putting on them, so they stretch, so they tear, so they break and bruise. Now, the problem with having weak blood vessels where you can see them is that also says that you have weak blood vessels where you can't. Weak blood vessels in the peripheral areas also denote weak blood vessels centrally, i.e., in your brain. And if the bump on your arm turns into a bruise, imagine what would happen when a blood vessel breaks in your brain. You better hope you die from it, because most of the time when you have a cerebral hemorrhage and you survive, they get to water you 3 times a day until you do die. So it behooves us to put in the stuff to make our fascia nice and strong and tight and our skin pretty, because it also benefits our blood vessels and our circulation and protects us from hemorrhagic strokes. It protects us from aneurysms bursting. It protects us from blood vessels stretching, spider veining, and becoming varicosed. Now, I want you to picture this. As we get older, the fascia gets weaker. As we feed the fascia less and less and less, it begins to tear. It begins to strain. It begins to lose its connection with either the bone, the periosteum of the bone, or the muscles that lie beneath it. And that's when the skin begins to hang in great big sheets, as we see what happens at the jowls, as we see it happening in the wattle just underneath your chin, between your chin and your neck, as we see it happen in the abdomen with women's breasts as they age. Well, once that connective tissue is gone, there ain't no putting it back. So, again, it behooves us to feed it well, to maintain it well, so that it doesn't tear like that, so that we don't have that saggy skin around our elbows, so that we don't have the sagging skin over our belt buckles, so that our tattoos on our chest still look like a beautiful bald eagle instead of some buzzard somewhere that got all stretched out and beaten up. All those beautiful Celtic knots that girls are having tattooed onto their lower backs are going to look like Bavarian pretzels by the time you reach old age, if you don't maintain your fascia. And the way that we do that is to eat at least 1,000 milligrams of organic sulfur a day. And the easiest way to do that is to take 1,000 milligrams of a supplement called MSM. It's available in every health food store in the nation. MSM and take 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of rutin on top of the MSM. If you also take in between 90 and 120 milligrams of zinc citrate is the most absorbable form of zinc, then you'll also be feeding your skin what it needs to stay strong, to stay beautiful, to stay tight. Now let's talk about wrinkles for a second. Let's form a picture in your mind. I want you to imagine a sheet of skin, and underneath that sheet of skin, you've got what looks like little threads of yarn, kind of fuzzy, kind of downy, sort of thick. And then under those millions of little strings of yarn is muscle. That is about the arrangement of your skin on your face. You've got the skin, you've got the fascia holding the skin onto the muscle, and then you've got the muscle. What happens when you form a wrinkle? You know, those little strings of yarn are like little pillars. Each little pillar holds up its section of skin. Those little strings of yarn, those little fibers of fascia, love water. They get soaked with water. They get strengthened and given rigidity with water. So they soak up your body's fluids, and it gives them the strength. It holds them up. But as we age, we get a protein coating. It's called polymerization. This protein coating develops over the fascia, and it's just like spraying plastic wrap on that piece of wool, on that piece of yarn, rather. It doesn't allow the water to get in. Now, if you've got enough little strings of fascia in a row that have polymerized and are no longer absorbing water and holding up their section of tissue, bang, you've got a wrinkle. Have enough of those, you got a bunch of wrinkles. Have them in great big lines, you've got huge wrinkles, usually where the skin normally creases. Now, we can prevent the polymerization of fascia real easy. We can also ease the polymerization of fascia to the point where we can somewhat lighten up wrinkles. Can't get rid of them entirely, but we can certainly lighten them up by the use of our old buddies, systemic enzymes. Systemic enzymes are the only thing on God's green earth that can eat away, lice away at that polymerization, because it really doesn't belong there. So the body tags that polymerization as an exogenous protein, a protein that is in the wrong place, that doesn't belong there, and systemic enzymes eat exogenously tagged proteins. So the enzymes will go in, they'll eat away at that polymerization, and that section of fascia will once again be able to soak up fluid, soak up water, try to get rigid again, and try to hold up its section of skin. If you eat away enough of the polymerization, and if you avoid dehydration, you can lighten up wrinkles considerably. We hear this all the time from seniors who have started systemic enzyme programs against arthritis, against fibrosis, against this, against that, or just for general health. They call back and they say, hey, is it my imagination or are my wrinkles getting lighter? No, it ain't your imagination. They actually are getting lighter. Those results were first seen in German medicine when they started using systemic enzymes back in 1959 and 60. As far back as the 60s, the German docs knew that systemic enzymes could lighten wrinkles, and their plastic surgeons were using systemic enzymes not only to lighten wrinkles, but to prevent scar tissue buildup on the face after their procedures, and to eat away at keloids, the scar tissue bumps that build up after surgery or after trauma. The systemic enzymes will eat away at all of the scar tissue and all the polymerization that isn't supposed to be there, that is tagged by the body as an exogenous protein. So let's go back and review this for a second. To give nutrition to the skin to maintain itself, we need zinc. The skin is one of the most zinc-rich organs in the body. In the guys, the only other really zinc-rich organ are your testicles and your prostate. The whole reason why your semen is white is because of zinc. In gals, the most zinc-rich organ is your uterus. So, we need to put in the zinc to maintain epithelial tissue, especially our skin and reproductive organs. Now, the next zinc-rich tissue are your eyes. A zinc deficiency is the primary reason for the onset of macular degeneration. And for the continuation of macular degeneration, you can actually slow the process of the degeneration down, whether it's the wet or the dry macular degeneration, by taking in copious amounts of zinc. Up to now, folks have tried to warn us away from zinc, telling us that the RDA is sufficient for our needs. You know, the RDA, which is 15 to 30 milligrams, is enough for a 1-ounce lab mouse. If you want to have the maintenance of a 1-ounce lab mouse, and go ahead, take your 15 to 30 milligrams of zinc. But if you weigh a little more than a 1-ounce lab mouse, if you have more skin, if your internal organs are larger, if you make more semen than a 1-ounce lab mouse does, if your uterus is bigger than a 1-ounce lab mouse, then you damn well better take in more zinc. One doctor I know, who's 89 going on 90 years old, takes almost 300 milligrams of zinc a day, and he's the randiest old fella I've ever seen. He's got a 40-year-old girlfriend. And he can get 40-year-old girlfriends because his skin is still pretty. All from the zinc. Now, we need at least 90 to 120 milligrams of zinc a day. You can go up to 200, but don't exceed 3. If you exceed 300 milligrams of zinc a day for, let's say, over 3 or 4, maybe 6 months, it will begin to accumulate. It can begin to create some toxicity. Now, remember the old wives' tale about oysters being an aphrodisiac? It's not an old wives' tale. Men who are zinc deficient, who eat oysters are extremely rich in zinc, one of the only zinc-rich foods around, all of a sudden start making sperm and seminal fluid again, and the zinc helps to make testosterone. It's one of the essential coenzymes for making testosterone. And all of a sudden, a guy goes from having no sexual function to having sexual function simply because the zinc is there and the zinc-rich tissues are soaking them up and using them. You know, a guy loses about 20 milligrams of zinc with each ejaculation. As I said, zinc is the reason why semen is white. It maintains the alkaline pH of the semen, allowing the sperm cells to survive. If the RDA is only 15 milligrams a day, think of all the ejaculations you've had, tally them up, and you'll figure out why your prostate begins to swell when you begin to go into zinc deficiencies. If your prostate is the most zinc-rich organ in your body, the most epithelial of all epithelial tissues, it will begin to malfunction when it doesn't have its building blocks. Now, on top of the zinc, we need to throw in the MSM, we need to throw in the rutin, because again, the rutin, or the bioflavonoids, are the glue that hold all the tissues together. And between the zinc, the MSM, and the rutin, we've got the outside and the inside of skin. And again, if we throw in the systemic enzymes, then we fight the wrinkles and the spider veins on skin.